Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. Ja Morant. Insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. Grizzlies win edition. The Grizzlies fought off elimination in Game 5. They've never lost a Game 5 at home in their franchise history. Of course, to have a Game 5 at home, you have to be the higher seed. But the Grizzlies, for the second straight year, down 3-1 in a series, have a blowout Game 5 victory at home. They got off to a strong start. They posted 38 points in the first quarter, tying the most points they've had for any quarter this series. Ja Morant and Desmond Bane led the charge. Both of them scored over 30 points. They both picked up double-doubles. This was Desmond Bane's first career playoff double-double as he picked up a playoff career-high 10 rebounds. Ja Morant had 31 points, 10 boards, and 7 assists. Bane, again, second straight game, scoring 30 or more. Bane had 33, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists. So Desmond Bane joined Ja Morant and Zach Randolph as the only Grizzlies players to have consecutive 30-point games. Ja and Desmond became the first Grizzlies teammates to both post 30 points and 10 rebounds in the same game since Bryant Big Country Reeves and Sharif Abdul-Rahim in 1997. Sean Coleman lets us know that Ja and Dez are the first pair of teammates in NBA history, aged 24 or younger, to produce 30 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists in the same game. Ja Morant and Desmond Bane provided the offensive punch. Coming into this series, if you were optimistic about the Grizzlies, this is the formula you were talking about. It seemed like this matchup favored Ja Morant and Desmond Bane being able to put up big games. Now, after the first 3 games, I was feeling kind of wrong about that feeling because I had the same feeling. I thought Bane was going to go off in this series. Bane really struggled the first 3 games. Before Game 4, if you remember, Taylor Jenkins said he had to be more aggressive, but looks like the aggression, it's coming, as Bane goes off now for the second straight game. This one, it wasn't like a total cakewalk. It was not Game 5 from last year against the Warriors, where they won by 1 million. The Lakers fought back. The Grizzlies did not finish the second quarter that convincingly. They had some interesting lineup wrinkles, which we'll get more into. David Roddy did not play in this game. They rolled out a 4-guard lineup. You had Ja Morant, Tyus Jones, Luke Kennard, and Desmond Bane playing alongside Jaren Jackson Jr., and that was a twist that it seemed like the Lakers were a little bit unprepared for. So the Grizzlies stretched the lead a little bit in the second quarter, but like I said, they didn't finish the first half that strongly. The Lakers cut it to 9 going into halftime. The second half began with the Lakers scoring 8 straight, and all of a sudden we have a 1-point game. And it remains a 1-point game, a little bit back and forth for a segment there. Dillon Brooks, who we'll get into a lot, Dillon Brooks got subbed out in the third quarter. And I think, if memory serves, this is the first time Dillon Brooks has ever been taken out early in the third quarter, or maybe any time, possibly not fourth quarter. This is the first time I can remember Dillon Brooks getting taken out for poor play. He gets taken out a lot for foul trouble. But in the history of Taylor Jenkins and Dillon Brooks on the Grizzlies, through all the ups and downs of Dillon Brooks, and it's been a lot of downs recently, they've always gone to Dillon when he's been healthy and available and not in foul trouble. They pulled him out just under 4 minutes into the second half. They put in Luke Kennard, and the Grizzlies took off, and the Grizzlies pulled away. The Grizzlies got up by 25. They used a 26-2 run at the end of the third quarter and the start of the fourth quarter to make it a blowout. The Lakers did run off 12 straight in the fourth quarter, made it sort of interesting, but not really. It never got interesting enough that Darvin Ham put LeBron James back in the game. LeBron, by the way, had one of the worst playoff games of his career, maybe the worst playoff game he's ever had in a potential closeout scenario. Historically, LeBron James teams have taken care of business when they have the opportunity to close out. LeBron was just 5 for 17 from the field, was 1 for 9 from 3. Didn't have it. If you're someone who supports the Grizzlies, you're hoping he's tired. He's worn out. I think he played 45 minutes in the previous overtime game. Cross-country flight, only one day in between games. Now they're doing it again. Game 6 will be Friday night, cross-country flight, only one day off. Does a longer series favor the younger team? We can cross our fingers and hope so. But LeBron James struggled. He's now shooting in this series. He is 6 for 36 on three-pointers, 1 for 9 in Game 5, shooting 17% on three-pointers, which is lower than what Dillon Brooks is shooting in the playoff series. Dillon is shooting 21.6% from 3. I think the big storyline from this one, outside of the Grizzlies backcourt, Desmond Bane, Ja Morant going off. I think the big story for Grizzlies fans, maybe national media, is the continued struggles of Dillon Brooks. This slump. I mean, I'm calling it a slump. Dillon's always been an inefficient shooter, but it's gotten out of hand. I know many people have always disliked Dillon Brooks. Many of you are saying, see, now everyone understands. Like, look, he's always been terrible. Personally, I don't think it's that clear cut. I know many of you are saying I'm in denial, which is fine. But this is a especially bad slump for Dillon Brooks. And you can, I think, fairly look back at last season in the postseason too, because he had a bad postseason. And he shot terribly against the Warriors. And he had that huge 3 for 18 awful game against the Timberwolves in Game 5. If you look back in his last 2 playoff series, I posted this on Twitter. In Dillon's last 2 playoff series, this is this year against the Lakers and last year against the Warriors, he hasn't hit 40% from the field in any of the games. He's shooting 31% in these games. And of course, he's been ejected from 2 of them. He didn't play in 1 of them. He's 44 for 142 from the field. That's right under 31%. If you want to stretch it back to to include that 3 for 18 game against Minnesota, his past 12 games, he's shooting 31.3%. Game 6 against Minnesota had a really nice game. During that span, he's also shooting just 61.5% from the foul line. He has 8 consecutive playoff games where he's attempted at least 11 field goal attempts and hasn't made it to 40% in any of those games. That's the second longest streak since the ABA-NBA merger. Only Kyle Lowry had a longer streak. Now, if you want to look at this as far as the other players who have had these kind of shooting slumps, it's not terrible players. Other players who have gone 8 straight playoff games with, again, this is arbitrarily defined, 11 field goal attempts and shooting under 40% in every game. Julius Randle's done it. J.R. Smith has done it. Nick Van Exel has done it. If you go to 7 straight games, you got some good names. Joe Johnson, Glenn Robinson. Jerry West back in the day. I mean, obviously no one is saying this shooting is ideal. And of course, we all know Dillon's main value is not shooting. It used to be just his ability to get the ball up on the rim was valuable to the Grizzlies. It's less so now with no Steven Adams and no Jonas Valanciunas. Now that offensive rebounding isn't a strength of the Grizzlies, Dillon's propensity for being able to generate the old Kobe assist, not as useful. And again, he's actively harmful now. No one's saying he's not. This game, 3 for 15 from the field. We've hit the point of the slump where the Lakers are allowing him to take wide open practice corner three-point attempts, and they're not guarding him. They're begging him to shoot. Dillon also 0 free throw attempts, 0 assists, 8 points on 15 field goal attempts. The man is, I don't know if he has the yips, if he's slightly broken. I will even entertain that he hasn't recovered from the play where he injured Gary Payton too. Is this, if we're going to talk like sports psychology or like what's going on in his head, and if we're talking about his below even his standards regular season, maybe he was affected by the flagrant 2 and the injury to Gary Payton 2 in last year's series against the Warriors, because since then it's been really pretty rough. In his last 12 playoff games, he's averaging nearly 15 field goal attempts per game and scoring 12 points per game. By the way, the names of other players who've had a 12-game span in the playoffs where they shot under 32% and attempted similar volume, I cut it off at a very low, like 8 field goal attempts per game. A lot of them are 3 and D, quote unquote, 3 and D specialists. Your Jay Crowders, your Trevor Arizas. There's some familiar Grizzlies playoff names here. Also, OJ Mayo, between his time on Memphis and Milwaukee, had stats like this. Tayshaun Prince, splitting his time between Detroit and the Grizzlies, had a stretch like this. So Dillon's shooting slump is not unprecedented in NBA history, but it's going on. And it's been hard to watch. And of course, combined with the headlines he's made off the court, it's been a really bad formula. My history with Dillon Brooks back in 2019, 2020 was I was on the get this guy out of here, or actually, I was more correctly, I was saying he needs to be our bench player. He needs to be a 6th man. The bubble year, I thought he was actively harmful to the team. I didn't understand how they kept letting him play and kept letting him shoot. This is back when I was pleading for, please put Kyle Anderson in at the 3. Please just play DeAnthony Melton. Why are we doing this? But I basically got converted into being a Dillon Brooks guy in the last 2 seasons, the previous 2 seasons, 2021 and 21-22. Thought he was an okay connecting piece. I didn't know how you'd get a better player than him. He guards the best player in a lot of series. I'm not replaying the Dillon hits. He guarded Karl Anthony Towns last year in the playoffs. He guarded Steph Curry last year in the playoffs. He guards LeBron James and Anthony Davis this year in the playoffs. But I think the pendulum has swung where you can't overcome this. You're 4-on-5 on offense now. Whoever's guarding Dillon is just sagging off into the paint. AD is just posting up inside, blocking everything, and the Grizzlies can't make them pay because they're not guarding Dillon. So that's why it was really notable that Taylor Jenkins took him out 4 minutes into the third quarter. I don't remember this happening before. Taylor Jenkins has given DNPs to Steven Adams, gave Steven Adams a DNP in the postseason. Dillon never got benched. Tyus Jones got a DNP when they tried the Justice Winslow at backup point guard minutes. We had Tyus Jones getting DNPs, although maybe that came from above. Maybe that was a executive front office decision over Taylor Jenkins' head. Like Kyle Anderson, his first year on the Grizzlies got a couple DNPs. Brandon Clark, we know, got DNPs. D'Anthony Melton got DNPs. Also, these guys, if they didn't have it, would get subbed out. I don't ever remember Dillon Brooks getting subbed out because he was playing poorly. Maybe I'm not remembering an incident, but it finally happened. And the Grizzlies took off without him. The Luke Kennard minutes. Luke Kennard was plus 26 in the 17 minutes he played. Before the series, I identified the lineup I thought they would use and I wanted to see, and it was Luke Kennard playing in the place of Dillon Brooks with the starters. Seemed obvious to go to Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Luke Kennard with Tillman and Jaren Jackson Jr. Well, they did it this game. They've only done it twice this series. They did it in Game 5. They did it in Game 3 when the Grizzlies were down by 26. It seems obvious to go to this. I think we're going to see it more and more. If, in fact, Luke Kennard is healthy, that is the twist here. Luke Kennard left this game with a shoulder stinger, got caught up on a screen by LeBron James. He actually stayed in the game for like a minute or so. The Grizzlies continued their 26-2 run with Kennard on the court. Desmond Bane scored a couple of times. They didn't call a timeout or foul on purpose to get him out of the game. But Luke Kennard has a shoulder stinger. We don't know his status for Friday night's game. If Luke Kennard is unavailable, I don't know what you do. It's a big blow. You just pray that Dillon Brooks hits open shots. He's done it before. Do you play more Tyus Jones and Ja Morant minutes? I would think that'd be the first option you go to. Do you put Roddy back in the rotation? So Roddy got a DNP. I do not mind the Roddy DNP. I said before the series started, yeah, I'm fine with going with Conchar over Roddy. The defense and rebounding are everything. That's the other positive, by the way, for Kennard. I'd like to reemphasize. Kennard is a better rebounder than Dillon Brooks, period. In the playoffs, he's got better rebounding percentages than Dillon Brooks. In the regular season, Luke Kennard has a higher defensive rebound percentage than Dillon Brooks. Also a higher defensive rebound percentage than David Roddy and Jake LaRavia and Zaire Williams. Luke Kennard, I'm not even joking, he's like the 4th or 5th best rebounder on the Grizzlies. So whatever Dillon adds with his one-on-one defense, which is significant, he loses some of it, he loses a ton of it with his poor offensive output. He also loses some of the value based on picking up fouls and not rebounding. I don't know what the exact formula is, where how much does Luke Kennard's inferior defense, like what's the formula for what he takes away with inferior defense, but then he brings back by actually being a superior rebounder than Dillon Brooks? I think when you combine that with the elite three-point shooting, we've well passed the point of we got to play Luke Kennard way more, and we can't just ride Dillon Brooks into the ground while he's shooting the Grizzlies out of basketball games. Now, the real question is what would have happened if Luke Kennard didn't get the shoulder stinger? Would he have come back in to close the game? Would he have come back in to play significant minutes? Like he had already played about 9 straight minutes. All of it basically a Grizzlies run when he got hurt. Would he have played, most of the rest of the game? Would they have gone back to Dillon at all or not gone back to Dillon? Just imagine the storylines if they hadn't gone back to Dillon in this game. Like it was on the table. I give Taylor Jenkins some credit for, one, rolling with that small guard lineup. He's done similar things. This is not the second half just playing Kennard over Brooks. He played a small guard lineup, that small guard lineup in the first half where, that they just got. So again, some of their better players. The Grizzlies' better players. And one of the reasons, again, I was lukewarm on the addition of Luke Kennard at the trade deadline was because we have small guys. We have Tyus Jones and Ja Morant and Desmond Bane, and the idea of getting another player who you couldn't play alongside those guys, it wasn't that appealing to me. Well, guess what? They did play them all together. And it worked out, and it's probably not going to keep working out. The Lakers did adjust and started going inside and punishing him there. But it was a good twist, and I commend Taylor Jenkins for trying that out, and I commend him for finally taking Dillon Brooks out in the third quarter and going to Luke Kennard. I do not commend Taylor Jenkins for taking Luke Kennard out with 3 fouls in the first half. You're really worried that Luke Kennard is going to foul out? You're playing Luke Kennard on the series less than 20 minutes a game. He picks up his 3rd foul, and he then sits for 10 minutes. He does come back in and play the final 50 seconds of the first half. But being worried about foul trouble for a backup, spot-up shooter, worried about foul trouble for a 3-point specialist off the bench is madness. Do not comprehend it at all. I also commend Taylor Jenkins for continuing to shorten the rotation. And, I mean, the not playing Roddy, I think that's a bold move. Roddy's shown some stuff, but frankly, he hasn't made shots. I don't know if there were specific defensive assignment reasons that he doesn't play in this one, and they go with Kennard. I mean, Kennard, for as much as I support playing him in short bursts, and I do value his experience and rebounding and a little bit of playmaking, the man is not a playoff performer. Kennard in his career now in the playoffs is 4 for 18 from the field. That is 22%. He's 1 for 10 in his career on playoff three-pointers. But much like Dillon Brooks, Kennard's value isn't in shooting. If I know I can depend on Kennard's rebounding and defense and not taking bad shots, I'm okay if he misses. A missed shot doesn't kill you. Most teams rebound 30% of your missed shots. Taking a good missed shot is okay. Now, when you cross the line of whatever's happening with Dillon Brooks, it goes too far. But the Grizzlies shortened their rotation. They shuffled their guys in and out, so usually Desmond Bane, Ja Morant, and Jaren Jackson Jr., at least 2 of those 3 guys were on the court. I'm going to say 2 of those 3 guys were on the court for most of this game. I'm only seeing like a couple of minutes in the first half, maybe 1 minute in the second quarter. Like, they have shortened the rotation. They are depending on Ja, Des, Jaren, like they should. Again, this game started reflecting the things we hoped for. Ja, Jaren, Des playing, 40-ish minutes. Des and Ja providing that offensive firepower. I haven't even mentioned Jaren Jackson Jr. Jaren Jackson Jr. has been really good this series. He hasn't been as dominant inside, but I mean, Anthony Davis is basically prowling and helping off on everything. But Jaren had 18 points, 14 of them coming in the second half. He posted his 2nd consecutive playoff double-double. The Grizzlies had 3 guys get double-doubles in the same game, which is very, very rare for them. Jaren had 18 points, 10 rebounds, also picked up 2 blocks, a steal. He made all 6 of his free throws. Jaren is shooting 87% from the line in the series. By the way, Desmond Bane is leading the NBA in postseason free throw percentage. He's 25 for 26 from the foul line. He was 24 for 24, but then he missed one near the end of this game. The Grizzlies, honestly, great job at making free throws. Unfortunately, I think it's veered into outlier territory. The Grizzlies have been awesome at free throws in this playoff series. By the way, Desmond Bane's career playoff averages now, after going 25 for 26 this playoffs, he's bumped his playoff career average. He's at 90% from the line and 43.8% from 3, despite shooting 31.8% this year. So I guess if we say, hey, the Grizzlies team, their free throw percentage is outlier good, Desmond Bane's 3-point shooting, honestly, I would say it's outlier bad so far. But Jaren has been very, very solid. And one thing that's good about his rebounding. It's not just the defensive rebounding. Jaren has pulled down in this series 17 offensive rebounds in the 5 games. That's the second most offensive rebounds Jaren's ever had over any 5-game span of his career. So the rebounding was much better this game. When you talk about like what was different in this game, Desmond Bane said it in the postgame that they got out a little bit in transition. They were able to get some offense off of getting stops. And that is something that we hoped would happen, that the Grizzlies would be able to score in transition off of defensive rebounds. That's something the Lakers had given up in the regular season. And so it seemed like one of the things that would favor the Grizzlies. Also, of course, the three-point shooting happened in this game. The Grizzlies made 14 threes. The Lakers only made 10. So we had a few things that we predicted before the series started actually came into fruition this game. Now the question is, can they do it on the road? Let's take a quick break now, and then I'll come back and talk more about this Game 5 victory over the Lakers. Students, cheer on your Memphis Grizzlies with us at FedEx Forum. Don't miss limited Big River Steel student playoff ticket pricing for the Big River Steel Edge, providing you with affordable tickets to experience every towel-waving moment of the 2023 playoffs presented by Orion and your Mid-South Ford dealers. Sign up today to get alerts about this exclusive ticket deal at grizzlies.com/students. Okay, I haven't said enough about Ja Morant this game. He was fantastic. He had a couple of big three-pointers. He kept attacking. He scored in the paint like we need to see. He had numerous spectacular finishes. He jumped over LeBron James, had that alley-oop tip-in play. He finished the third quarter with yet another buzzer-beating move, a one-on-one to the bucket, or one-on-two, honestly. He's now averaging in his career, let's just keep saying him because I haven't said him in a while, he's averaging 28.2 points per game in the playoffs. That's the 7th highest points per game total in NBA history. The only players in NBA history to have a higher points per game in the playoffs: Michael Jordan, Luka Doncic, Allen Iverson, Kevin Durant, Jerry West, and LeBron James. In his playoff career, he's averaging 2.1 made threes per game. So he steps up the three-point shooting. He has historically so far. And we're only 18 games in, which isn't a ton, but it's significant. He's averaging over 2.1 made threes per game in the playoffs. As a comparison, Kevin Durant averages 2.2 made threes per game in his playoff career. Guess what? Ja Morant has a better career three-point percentage in the playoffs than Kevin Durant. Ja was great. He banged up his knee apparently in the game. Got a little knot on the side of his knee. Sounds like it was just a contusion, and it swelled up a little bit. So that's something to monitor, but you wouldn't think it would affect him any in Game 6. By the way, in this game, Ja Morant passed Tony Allen to move into 4th place in Grizzlies franchise history for playoff scoring. That's right. Before yesterday, Tony Allen had the 4th most playoff points for the Grizzlies. Some more stats and stuff about this game. The Grizzlies held the Lakers under 100 points for the second time this series. The Lakers were only held under 100 points 3 times all regular season. This, by the way, it was Ja Morant's first playoff win since the Game 2 nail-biter last season against the Warriors. He, of course, missed Game 5 against the Warriors last year when he was injured, and he missed Game 2 of this series when he was injured. And so Ja Morant gets to taste victory in a game he played in for the first time since Game 2 against the Warriors last year. Here's a unique novelty stat, the sort of which I hope you expect from this show. The Grizzlies drew their first 2 charges of this series on Wednesday night. Tyus Jones and Ja Morant both picked up one. Speaking of Tyus Jones, so he did play in that small ball lineup. He only played a couple minutes in the second half, or a few minutes in the second half. Tyus is just 2 for 17 on threes in the series. The last 2 playoff series, stretching back to the Warriors series last year, he is just 24% on threes. As a way of comparison, Dillon Brooks, his last 2 playoff series is 27% on three-pointers. So none of that is really ideal. Another thing that isn't exactly great, I think, for the Grizzlies is if you just want to look at the Lakers, either their lineup decisions and their plus minus for their big guys. The Lakers outscored the Grizzlies by 6 points when Anthony Davis was on the court. Can Darvin Ham play Anthony Davis more? I'm not sure. Anthony Davis said he can go 48 if he needs. He doesn't look like it. But they might continue playing him more and more. Like LeBron James, who was 5 for 17 from the field, like I said, his plus minus was only -1. The Grizzlies dominated the Lakers when their main guys went out. I mean, kind of cherry-picked number. Through 3 quarters, the Lakers were -21 in the 6 minutes Austin Reeves didn't play. I saw the Lakers SB Nation blog pointed out that the Lakers got outscored by 18 points in the 5 minutes they didn't play a center. So there were just some runs in this one, and a lot of it happened. Yes, it happened when Luke Kennard was on the court. The flip side is, the further context is, it happened a lot of the times when Anthony Davis was out and when the Lakers were playing some lineups that weren't really that good. Like Malik Beasley and Troy Brown Jr. coming in together and leaving Luke Kennard open. I mean, Luke Kennard only shot 3 times. But the Lakers are having their own problems, and it does feel like something that they could address and something they could fix. Now, Xavier Tillman had an interesting game. I mean, Xavier Tillman is doing yeoman's work. He's out there. He's guarding LeBron a lot. He's bodying up with AD. He's giving us excellent effort, and they're leaning on him because they have to lean on him. But he struggled in this one, missed a lot of makeable layups. He did, however, turn it around, a very important dunk and one. This was a big play. It looked like it was close to a charge. It was correctly called a block as Hachimura does not get his feet totally outside of the charge circle. I'm also not sure, since the play, again, originated in the lower block, if he gave Tillman enough space to move. But it was definitely the correct call. Tillman gets this dunk after missing a couple of layups previously. He then misses the free throw, but the Grizzlies get a rebound, kick it out to Desmond Bane. He misses, but Tillman grabs an offensive board, kicks it out to Bane for a 3. That's where the run really started going. That made it a 12-0 run. I think AD scored right after that in a tough kind of little hook shot in the paint, but then Aldama hit a corner 3. Aldama played okay. I mean, again, you basically have to grit your teeth the minutes Aldama's in, but he made a 3 to continue the Grizzlies growing their lead. And again, remember that ended up being I believe 26-2 overall run. Tillman finished with 8 points, 6 rebounds. He grabbed or picked up 4 assists. Now, Game 6, Friday night, like I said, 9:30 p.m. Central. There will be a watch party in Memphis at the Fourth Bluff Park. There's also a watch party in Nashville. If you want to come hang out with me, we will be back at Noble's Beer Hall. Again, the game starts at 9:30 p.m. Central. So come hang out with fellow Grizzlies fans, attend some of these watch parties, come to Noble's Beer Hall, get some Grizzlies prizes from me on Friday. But the Grizzlies haven't been good on the road all year. They haven't won at LA all year. They shot under 40% in both games against the Lakers this series that were in Los Angeles. They can't afford to get off to a slow start. We can hope that the series, as it grinds on, it's wearing down LeBron and it's wearing down AD, but we're dealing with our own stuff. Kennard with the shoulder stinger, his status is uncertain. Ja Morant, hurt wrist, now hurt knee. His status, yes, he's going to play, but how much that affects him, we don't know. Can the Grizzlies take a punch or maybe deliver an opening punch instead of falling behind? I think that's going to be one of the big keys. Can the Grizzlies role players step up? Whether it is Conchar or can Tyus Jones make some threes? I mean, if Roddy gets back in the game. Roddy's shooting a worse percentage this series than Dillon Brooks, guys. I know it's very, very small sample size, but a lot of the bench guys beyond Luke Kennard aren't making their shots. Can Jaren have another big offensive game? I mean, he's averaging over 18 points for the series. I'm not going to be too greedy. with how he's rebounding and how he's playing defense. As long as he's staying out of foul trouble, I'm good with it. But these are the questions if the Grizzlies can then force a Game 7. The Grizzlies are actually 2-1 in Game 6s, down 3-2 in their franchise history. Unfortunately, the Game 7s don't work out for them so far in history. But they have a chance to rewrite the record books. This is a new squad with new talent, as you can see by, the 30-point games from so many guys on this roster. Ja and Jaren and Desmond. Oh, and by the way, Dillon. All with 30-point games in playoff situations. So it's going to be an exciting game on Friday night. The Grizzlies, by the way, are 4.5-point underdogs, which is, I believe, what they were for both Games 3 and Games 4. Oh, and one more novelty stat. I said this on Fast Break Breakfast. Since the grit and grind era began, the Grizzlies have played the 13th most playoff games of any team. In that time, they've played 13 playoff overtime games, which as of Wednesday, it was the most in the NBA for any team since then. But on Wednesday night, the Miami Heat went to overtime as they upset the Milwaukee Bucks. Now the Grizzlies and Heat are tied for the most playoff overtime games since 2010. Roughly 15% of all Grizzlies playoff games since the start of the grit grind era have gone into overtime. By the way, the Heat are second in the number of playoff games in that time frame. So the Grizzlies are putting our nerves to the test. Will they do that on Friday? Whew. I don't know if I can take it. Anyways, I appreciate everyone who came to the Nashville watch party on Wednesday night. I appreciate everyone who's listening to this show. I further appreciate anyone who will subscribe to the Grits and Grinds YouTube channel and write me a 5-star review on whatever podcast app you are using. Anyways, hope you're having a great Thursday. Talk to you soon. Go Grizz.